Hi everyone, and welcome aboard the Boeing 737. Welcome to the flight deck. I just thought I'd make this video just to talk you through a quick startup in the 737 here. We're currently on the ramp at Seattle Tacoma International, and yeah, I'm just going to run you through a quick startup procedure. Okay, so we grab a checklist. And the first things we're going to be needing is standby power, which is closed, and the battery. Okay, so we've got battery power now. The next thing we're going to do is select ground power. We have ground power available, so and that's starting to bring the aircraft to life now. So now we're going to run through the rest of the checklist. What we want to do is get onto APU power, and then we can turn the ground power off and disconnect from the ground power car. So the first thing to check is left aft fuel pump is coming on. Okay, that is on. APU is going to start. And now we have to just wait a little while, just while the APU, which is a small jet engine in the tail of the aircraft, starts to spool up. Okay, so the exhaust gas temperature is now stabilising on the APU. And we're just waiting for that power to start being delivered, at which point we will switch over to the electrical bus for the APU. Okay, so this blue light now tells us that we've got APU power available, so now we're going to switch over to the APU. Okay, so APU bleed comes on, and that provides bleed air from the, which is basically air that's tapped off of the APU, and then used on the aircraft for air conditioning, for the air conditioning packs, and for bleed air to start the engines, basically compressed air, which would start up the main engines that are on each side of the wing of the aircraft. Okay, so next step is emergency exit lights are already on, so that's checked. Window heaters are coming on, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and we've got green lights on all of those. So we're going to jump ahead here. The next step would be recirc fans, ISO valve, and packs. So basically that makes quite a lot of noise, so we want to keep it a little bit quiet for now. So we're just going to skip ahead. Okay, next thing is engine hydraulic pumps. They are both on. Fuel check loaded, so now we're going to check on the FMC that the fuel has been loaded that we've requested. And we have 7 tonnes in total, which is more than enough for what we want to do. So that is all checked and okay. Next thing to check is the payload. So we're just going to check the payload on the computer. And the payload is checked, and that's fine. Now we're going to, now we've switched over to APU, we can disconnect ground power, and we're going to ask for that to be released as well. So the ground handlers down on the apron will now disconnect the ground power, which actually plugs in right near the front of the aircraft where the cockpit is. Okay, that's been released. So now we're fully independent, we're on our own power now, being generated by the auxiliary power unit in the tail. Okay, so next thing to check would be, so position light goes to steady, so the position light there, and basically that's going to let everybody on the ground know that we're going to be starting the engine soon. Okay, so logo light not required, it's daytime. Cabin lights are all set. Seat belts and no smoking, they are on. IRS mode selectors, so our inertial reference system is basically a computer set of gyros which basically spin up and then they can tell us wherever we are in the world. They will have an inertial reference of our position. So we're just going to switch those onto nav, and they're going to go into align mode, and they are aligning now. Okay, so we're going to have a quick check of the FMC. This is where we put all of our routing information from our flight plan, basically waypoints strung together, which will get us from point A to point B. Okay, at this stage now we're going to, the simulation actually spins up the navigation system much faster than it would in real life. So now they're ready to start telling us where we are in the world. So now we can take that those coordinates in latitude and longitude, that unit is now reporting to the FMC, and we're going to enter in that position so that the aircraft now knows where we are in the world. And as we do that, you can actually see in front of me that the displays are now showing, before they were in like a test mode or a standby mode, and now they have information from the FMC and from the INS. They can now display in a way that the pilots will be able to use when they're in flight. Okay, so moving on from that, stab trim, a little bit different in this aircraft to the actual real 737, being that it's a simulation. We check the stab trim here. Okay, and these stab trim motors are what you just heard, and stabilizer looks like it's set in a good position, so that is excellent. So the comm radios are down here on the pedestal. Those comm radios are set already because we can hear chatter from ATC already. Okay, flight deck doors now. The forward entry door is still open. Now we're going to go ahead and get that closed. And outside now the forward entry door is closing, and that light is extinguished, which tells us that the forward entry door is now closed. Okay, so now we check the flight deck doors. The flight deck doors have been closed and secured. The gear pin is in the cockpit, and the gear pin is what's pulled out of the nose gear and the main gears. If you've seen them before, they're just like a red tape that says remove before flight. Those are now taken out. Okay, so we're ready now to set the transponder code. The transponder code's already been set. Transponder is on standby. Well, it is now. The transponder's on standby until we get to the runway, and then once we enter the runway and we're ready to depart the airport is when we switch on the transponder. Okay, so we'd come up here now to the FMC, the autopilot, We don't need to set speed, heading, altitude, anything like that we normally would set on a normal trip, because all we're doing is starting the engines up at the gate, and that's as far as we're going today. Okay, so we can skip past that. Okay, so now the yaw damper comes on, and the lights extinguish, yaw damper is on. Okay, flight director is going to come on my side. That's the flight director on. The minimums reference, we don't need the minimums as we're not flying today. The altimeters are set to 1013, 1013 and 1013 on the FO side. Okay. Anti-collision light can now come on. The anti-collision light goes on before we start the engines. The fuel pumps are coming on. So these are the rest of the fuel pumps, and the low pressure lights are extinguished. The centre fuel tank is empty today, so we're going to keep these fuel pumps off of the centre fuel tank. Okay, so electric hydraulic pumps. So the electric hydraulic pumps coming on now, and the hydraulic pressure is coming up on our engine display, on our ICAS. Okay, the next step, parking brake. So what we're going to do is get the parking brake set, and we'll just check those. Parking brake is set. And the chocks are now removed. No, well, that's been confirmed that the chocks are removed. Parking brake is set. Auto throttle. We would arm the auto throttle, but we're going to leave that today. We're not going up in the air. Okay, so now we're ready for startup. So now we're going to start with engine number 2 first, and then we move on to engine number 1. Right, so the ground crew has cleared us, so we've got clearance for engine start. So at this point the packs would come off, the recirc fans would come off, and the ISO valve would be set to the correct position, but as we didn't set any of that, because we didn't want to cause any extra noise while I was recording, that has been left off anyway. So there's basically no air demand on the aircraft at the moment. So now we're ready to go ahead and start engine 2. So we'll start the start switch, which is here, and we'll move it to the ground position. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start monitoring the ICAS, which is the engine displays and readouts. Okay, so N2 is spinning up. N2 is the core of the engine, and once that reaches 25%, we're ready to introduce fuel. So I'm going to hit the fuel cutoff for engine 2, and that'll cause the blue lights to extinguish there. And you can actually now hear the large blade on the front, which is the N1. The N1 fan starting to spin up. You can actually see it there. And this is the part that you hear in the aircraft. When you start to hear it, you can hear it now. It's that noise that you're getting ready to go on holiday. Okay, so I've been monitoring the engine temperature so that it doesn't over-temp. There hasn't been an over-temp on the engine, so now we'll switch the start switch to off. And we've got a good start on engine 2, so we're going to go ahead now and start engine 1. Same procedure, engine 1 start switch to ground start, and that's going to start introducing compressed air into engine number 1, which is going to start spinning the core of the engine up, which is what's happening now. And we've reached 25% N2, so now we can introduce the fuel. So I'm going to hit the fuel cutoff for engine 1, and that's that one done. Okay, we've got a good start. And the N1 blade is starting to spin up now, as it did with the N2, as it did with engine 2. And the switch can go to off. And that's a good start on engine 1. Okay, so we're going to run through the rest of the checklist now. Okay, so controls check free and clear. Okay, controls are free and clear. Generator 1 and 2 wants to come on now. So basically what that is, we've been using the electrical power from the APU. That's now going to switch over to the engines. So we're going to go with 1 and 2. And the APU gen, I'm just going to check that that bus is switched over. That is switched over. Now we can bring on the engine bleed air and switch off the APU bleed air because we don't need it anymore. Okay, now the air for the aircraft is now coming off the engines, being generated by the main engines on the wing. We can now switch off the APU. So the APU is coming off, blue light extinguished. Okay. So at this point, we'll switch on the air, so it gives you an idea of it is a bit noisy. Okay, so that's the air systems on. So that's basically the recirc fans and packs. And we check the ISO valve is set correctly. Okay, now at this point there's not much more to do before we start rolling. So what we do is we set the engine start switches to continuous. And what else can we do? Because we're not actually going anywhere. Okay, lower DU is off. Auto brake to RTO. And auto brake is now RTO. The taxi lights would come on, but we're not going to turn those on. The flaps would normally be set at this point. We're not going to do that. We're going to check the recall. So we've checked the recall here, and it's telling me that anti-ice needs to come on. That is actually the next step in the checklist. So anti-ice is coming on. So now there's no orange on here, no orange here, no orange on the rear overhead. We're good to start moving. Okay, so wing anti-ice not needed, engine anti-ice not needed. Probe heats are on. Recall is checked, and I'll just go ahead and do 1 or 2 more things and then we're finished. So this is the engine fire test. That's the engine fire test, and we can do a quick systems test before we shut down. So this systems test basically runs through the ground proximity warning system.
Glide slow.
Which is what it's doing now.
Pull up. Wind shear. Wind shear. Wind shear. Terrain. Terrain. Pull up. Airspeed full. Airspeed full. Sink rate. Pull up. Terrain. Pull up. Don't sink. Don't sink. Too low. Terrain. Too low. Gear. Too low. Flaps. Too low. Terrain. Glide slow. Bank angle. Bank angle.
Approaching minimums. Minimums. 2,500. 1,000. 500. 400. 300. 200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Wind shear. Wind shear. Wind shear. Too low. Terrain.
Okay, so that's the test over. You'll see the colours come off the screens in a minute. There we go. Okay, I'm going to turn the air off. Makes things a little bit quieter so you can hear what I'm actually saying. Okay, right. So that's it really. If you want, I can switch the engines off now. So you can just see what happens when we turn the engines off. Obviously it's not standard operating procedure, but just in case you might want to hear it. Also means we can hear ourselves think now. And there we go. And pretty soon we're going to start hearing some alarms and stuff because it doesn't like being turned off like that. Okay, so thanks very much guys, and I hope to see you in another video. Let me know if you like this. Thank you. See you soon.